You are listening to Ideas and Leaders podcast. I'm Elena Paventa, Executive Communication Coach and TEDx organizer. With each episode, I'll share with you communication tips and ideas from top business leaders to help you excel in your career. So my guest today is Pat Johnson, past international president of Toastmasters International. She's also the leadership coach, and she's helping the leaders to overcome their self-limitations. And today we will be talking about leadership. And also currently Pat is region advisor in Toastmasters for the European region. Hi, Pat. Great to have you here.
Thanks, Elena. It's great to be here with you. Thanks for inviting me.
So for the beginning, can you tell us about your journey? How did you get to become the leader of an international organization? And how did you become the coach for the leaders? What is your journey?
Well, my Toastmasters journey in particular was ran parallel to my career in government and corporations. So it was basically parallel to one another. I started in Toastmasters because I was very, very shy. I didn't have confidence. I didn't have any self-esteem. And I was really to the point of being frightened to actually go in front of people or walk into a room where there were people, because I didn't want to have to network or talk to anybody. I always felt like I wasn't good enough, that I wasn't smart enough, that I wasn't good looking enough. I had all these self-doubts. And so it really held me back. When I was invited to go to Toastmasters, it was suggested to me that I go to Toastmasters by a colleague in a university course that I was taking. It took me a long time to get there, but I did eventually go. And there I found a place where I could start and find myself. I found that I had some skills, that I was smart enough to do many things, that I could get out of my own way. And after I got some communication skills, some basic communication skills, then I really got involved in leadership. And I loved it because I'm very collaborative. I'm actually naturally extroverted and I love to work in teams. So there I found an environment where I could. And I wasn't afraid to take on a team and lead a team. For some part of me knew how to do that. I look at it and I think, well, it's because I care about people generally and how they feel. So that for me was a good place to start. I found that when I started in leadership, I got invited by people that saw what I did to do more and more. And I stepped. Although sometimes I was very nervous about stepping forward, that's a natural part of it, the growth, because I was getting out of my comfort zone and doing something I'd never done before. But I was willing, and I had really strong mentors around me that supported me and encouraged me, so I kept going. As I got through the district, which in Canada, where I live, was at the provincial level, and then I had an opportunity to actually run for an international board. And so I ran as for an international director role and was elected. So having served 2 years then on the international board of this international organization, I found work that I loved doing. I loved considering policy. I adored strategic planning and visioning. And I found that I was the person that always had another big idea that we could do that was beyond just doing the task, but why were we doing it? And what was the lasting legacy? What could help people that came behind me? And so as I was an international director, people started coming to me and asking me and suggesting that I consider further leadership. And it frightened me because I thought, I don't know how to do that. And again, having a strong mentor said, look at it step by step. take the first step. And so I then put my name forward and I ran for what we call second vice president now, and I was elected. I was terrified when I was campaigning and doing my campaign speeches, but I had this quiet confidence inside of me that I could do it because the people that I trusted and believed around me believed I could do it. So they instilled that confidence in me. And as I went up those chairs, 5 more years in executive committee of this organization, each year the confidence grew and the knowledge also, because I find that my confidence is often based on having knowledge. And so it gives me the confidence to be able to present and govern. And so as I sat the first meeting after I was elected international president, we walked into the boardroom and the newly elected board was right there sitting around the table waiting for me to chair that first meeting. And I sat there with my hand on the gavel, and the immediate past president was on my left-hand side, and the CEO of the organization was sitting on my right-hand side. And I sat there and I was just almost like I was stunned. And they're both poking me going, call the meeting to order. So I finally brought the gavel down, and it was like I woke up when the gavel banged the table and I called the meeting to order of that new board. It was like I woke up to, I'm the chair and I am capable of this. And I'm also worthy of it, that I had done the work to get there. Interestingly enough, as I was going through these roles in the Toastmasters organization internationally and reaching out and campaigning internationally to people you've never met before or never talked before is a huge expansive growth period that I got, so that I quite loved to do. And the other part was that my growth in my work world happened parallel. In 1 year, I got 3 promotions, and I went from a staff member to being in charge of the department. So I ran learning and development departments. And because I was so immersed in the Toastmasters programs and strategic planning, I unconsciously was taking that all to my workplace. And so I was showing up as this person that was creating all these new things at work, and it was all noticed and rewarded. So that was very, very interesting for me as I went on. I think that the other thing that I did in my leadership journey is that I'm very introspective. And so I watched when things came up and when I felt like I had a gap in my knowledge or where my confidence wasn't great, I would go and take an extra course. So I didn't get everything I needed from one shopping place. One program didn't give me everything I needed, but it highlighted what I needed. So then I could go out and get a customized course that I came back, and then I implemented that. So for example, I went and took training on conflict resolution, and I got a certificate in conflict resolution, mediation, and negotiation, which I used every day in my leadership. I went and got a certificate program in change management and transitioning people in times of change. And those 2 certificates I used every day at work and in my leadership journey. So it was amazing. And for me to actually arrive someplace that I never could have imagined myself being when I started on this journey, and also to see how it directly related to my career and my success at work. It was sometimes very scary because I was outside of my comfort zone a lot of the time, but I also really learned that if I'm not stretching and growing, I'm not happy. So I am one person that I'm always looking for the next challenge. What would be challenging for me to do? So when I was international president, I was responsible for strategic direction, strategic board, looking at the money, providing feedback to the CEO and working collaboratively with them in that business. But as I ended that and I got on various committees then to get involved and stay involved in strategic parts of the organization, and felt that, really that's where I'm most comfortable. When I looked at what am I going to do next in Toastmasters, in 2018, I wrote a book, and something that I had been passionate about for years and years and years. And I published that book and had an opportunity to present it at our international convention, which was another woo, who would have ever thought? And then I was convention, what do they call, host district chair for the international convention in Canada, in Vancouver, British Columbia, and had a huge team that we organized for that. So again, a different use of skills and confidence building that I hadn't had before. So this past year, when I considered applying for region advisor, and I specifically went, where would I be interested in being a region advisor? And my partner and I actually talked about going and living in Europe for a year. And I went, perfect, I'll apply to become this operational person in Europe. And then COVID intervened. And so we're doing it distance. But my growth this year as a leader, and certainly it goes back even to my work and supports me in my career, is that it's more operational. It's more down into the details and what's the daily things that need to happen. And I was just talking to my partner, Nigel, the other day, and I said, I need a secretary. I need an administrative support person that does all this administration stuff for me, because I'm not particularly good at it. I'm better than I was, but I'm still learning and gaining confidence in doing it. So I just think life is to be learned from, and that we don't know what doors are going to open to us next. So to continually prepare and be ready. And if the door opens, I believe when I walk up to a door, if it opens, then it's mine. And so I can step through it and learn things and contribute as well. So I hope that's answered the question.
Yes, absolutely. This is you have such an amazing leadership journey. You had so many roles, and it is so inspiring that you never stop and that you want to learn more, to do more. And I know also that you are a leadership coach, and you work with leaders to help them overcome some self-limitations. And you mentioned some of the limitations already, that sometimes we feel that we're not enough, we don't have enough confidence. So what are the most typical self-limitations you see when you work with your clients, and how would you recommend to overcome them?
Well, thanks for that huge topic, Elena. I think that just some main things that I find is that as a coach, I often hear people talk and bring their issues where they take whatever's happening out there to mean something about themselves. And so, we had talked about this in a different conversation about somebody walking by and not saying hi to Pat, and Pat going, oh my goodness, I wonder what I've done to Elena that she didn't speak to me. And the reality is, so we make up stories all the time because we want to make sense of it. And we see ourselves that the world is us-centric. It's me-centric. It has to mean something that I've done or not done that Elena would walk by and not acknowledge me. Where in fact, Elena walked by, didn't even see me. And it had nothing to do with me at all. It might have been that Elena had a project she was thinking about, any number of circumstances. So I find that we make up stories a lot, and they stop us. So I might be reluctant to call Elena to talk to you about something because I think that you are upset with me, or I've displeased you, or I haven't done something I said I would do. And so we create all these stories that stop us and keep us from moving forward. I think a lot of those stories are also the voice of our parents or our grandparents, or those people of influence in our lives that told us that we should sit down and be quiet, or that we shouldn't be so ambitious, or how dare you think you can do that, or who are you? You know, those words stick in us at some unconscious level. And I find that that's where most of our limitations are, is at that unconscious level. And so it takes a fair amount of work to dig them out and discover them. So I had a great aunt that was my hero and still is. And she always told me to keep company with the type of people that you want to be. And she was the one person that really believed in me. She used to tell me that I could do what I wanted to do, but nobody else told me that or encouraged me in my family. There was a story in my family told over and over again that I heard as I was growing up, and this is how a child's mind absorbs this information, stores it away, and then we live it out in our adult lives. We live the things we hear as children, and we manifest them in our adult lives without knowing what the origin is. But I always felt when I was growing up that I wasn't very smart, that I wasn't intelligent. And I thought, it seems contrary to evidence that I see, because I got through school. I'm really curious. I love reading. I love learning. I always have lots and lots of ideas. How can I not be intelligent? And so I thought, I want to challenge this core belief that I had. But first of all, I needed to find out where it came from. And as I worked with my coach, what I discovered was that there was this statement that my parents used to make when my brother and I were very young. And the comment went like this. My brother, whose name's Terry, they would say, everything comes so easily to Terry. Now, he was talented and he was gifted, and things did come easily for him. But what my parents then said, Pat has to work hard for everything she gets. I don't think they meant anything maliciously, but what the child, the 6-year-old, the 7-year-old, the 12-year-old heard every year was that Terry was smart and brilliant and Pat wasn't. And so the child interpreted that to mean, if he's smart and brilliant and I'm the opposite of that, working hard, obviously that to me meant that I'm not smart. And only in my 30s did I actually say, this has to be settled. And I went to Mensa and I took the IQ test and discovered that I wasn't anything short of intelligent, right? So sometimes to actually pull them apart is deep work because it's so unconscious. People are afraid to step out because we were told that we couldn't. So I often ask clients, whose voice is that? When somebody says, I can't do that, I'll go, whose voice is that really? Is that your parents or your grandparents or a teacher? So those people are so influential in actually putting the foundations in us. And what I discover as a coach is that we live our adult lives from that confidence and that self-image that was given to us when we were very, very young, from age 3 to 5. And we live that out our entire life unless we can pull it apart, become aware of it, and challenge it. So I no longer think that I'm not smart. I actually know that I'm intelligent, and that really empowered me in the workplace. The other thing that happens a lot is people feel they're imposters, and we call it imposter syndrome. So people get a promotion at work and they walk around going, I'm not worthy of this. I'm not capable of doing the work. And again, I think that that's, for me, when I dig down with them, it's often based on that you'll never amount to anything, or whatever casual comment is made that a child overhears, or maybe it's a family that believes that we're just not destined to be rich, or we're never going to go to university. I look at those people that come out and they say, I was the first person in my family to go to university. And I think, wow, they really overcame something, or somebody powerful behind them supported them, encouraged them to challenge those limitations, to break the mold, to do something that they're worthy of. I think that also saying the word worthy is a big barrier, that we get this, that we suffer from a lack of worthiness. And I think that we take as much space up and contribute as much as we think we're worthy. And for me, I remember sitting in a boardroom and actually having ideas and expressing those ideas, and somebody saying, that was a great idea, we could act on that, and thinking, oh, but does everybody else agree? And I was looking around for validation because I didn't know if I was worthy of having that idea or having that success in my career, or being the chair of the board. Was I worthy? And I would look back and I would look at the work I did and the hours, and I would go, I earned it. I earned it by hard work and doing the right things, consulting and getting good advice, having strong teams around me. So yeah, the self-talk and the programming that happens to us is so self-limiting.
Yeah. So how would you suggest to overcome this imposter syndrome, or this lack of self-worth? What do we need to do to be stronger?
Yes. Well, I think that this in the type of coaching I do it's called it's very holistic. So I look at all the parts of the person, and I really believe that when we go to deal with this, that it's important for us to look for evidence. So our brains, as part of our functioning, want to create evidence because our brain is always trying to prove right or wrong. And so when we say I'm unworthy, and our brain says, yes, you are, then we need to create evidence. We need to discover evidence and bring that forth to our brain. So it might be as simple or as complex, because I don't think it's simple, the process, but to create a list, create evidence that you have proven yourself. For example, if you're looking at confidence and self-esteem, actually sit down and, without editing, write down all the things that you've accomplished, the things that you've been complimented on, the times that you did a training program and said, that was awesome, the time somebody recognized you for being an amazing supervisor at work, or doing a great project. Instead of going, oh, it was nothing, or I got lucky, or it was the team, instead of deflecting it, look at that as evidence that you're worthy or that you're capable, and use it for your confidence. And so I did some of that in my processes. I also did that with my coach on some things that were stickier, that were more difficult for me to articulate. And I actually had to find the evidence to prove to my brain, who wanted to stay with that, you are in over your head, you're not going to make this, that I could actually prove on paper that I had done all these risky or scary things for me and I had survived. And then I actually went so far as to say, what's the worst thing that could happen if I fail? And in most cases, the consequences of failure were very little versus the benefits that I would get, the lessons I would take away. And the other thing that I learned was, if you make a decision, and the decision doesn't work out, you can always make another decision. So keep going, build on what you learn and keep going. And confidence and self-esteem really comes from successes. And so taking the time to acknowledge our individual successes. And I don't mean from an ego perspective, like, aren't I fabulous? But doing a bit of this and going, good job, that was tough. Just as we would expect and appreciate that kind of feedback from our supervisor or our manager or our boss saying, wow, that was a great job. To do that for ourselves, we don't always have to have validation out there, but we need to self-validate. And if that doesn't work in doing that personal work for you, then I really encourage you to look out and find a coach that helps you, because again, it's getting over those hurdles that are so unconscious for us. And sometimes we don't ask for help because we think we have to do it ourselves. It's a sign of weakness to ask for somebody else. It's endless, the things that come up. So it's an amazing journey when we're introspective and do the work on ourselves and validate ourselves.
Yeah, I did the exercise like this on confidence, where I listed all my wins and successes some time ago. It is several years ago. I did this exercise, and the results were amazing. When I wrote out everything, I did so many things. I did not realize that I achieved so much, because when we achieve something, we don't think about it. We just tick the next, and we don't think about it. It is so important to focus and to realize that, yes, I did this my own, maybe with the help of someone, but this is my achievement. And it gives so much self-confidence. I think that it is really important to stop for a moment and to just acknowledge ourselves for what we did.
And, it just raises the point of celebration. And that's the word I wanted to say when you started talking about this, is that this is one of the things that even in project management at work, we go through a project, we finish it, we go, great job, team, and we walk out and here's the next assignment. And I go, can we just take a moment and celebrate? Like, we've just come out of this project that was lots of money, lots of hours, lots of risk mitigation, etc. And here we are, successfully completed it. Could we just acknowledge it? But it seems like there's that need to just jump into the next, that we have to prove ourselves. And in my coaching approach, it's always like, it's called Ontological Coaching. So it's the holistic approach. And I'm always saying that it's most important to focus on who we're being when we're doing all of this. So we're human beings. And so we need to show up as a human being with emotions and needs and a brain, but also a heart and soul that we bring to everything we do, and that we have time to celebrate and breathe. And we just not on a treadmill doing. We're not human doing, human being. And so to remember that, which isn't always rewarded greatly, but I think as we go up in organizations and we work with more people as leaders, that beingness is so important, because I think that makes a difference when we're sitting in an office physically and people come to the doorway and want to come in. It's our beingness that invites them in, not what we're doing or not doing. So we can have a sense of welcome, or there's just that, it always feels easy to walk into Elena's office. She's always got a smile, or she's always willing to set down her work to take a moment to chat. So it's that beingness that comes from our heart and soul rather than our brains, because our brains are going to be task oriented, and their job is to keep us alive and make sure that we survive, and they never stop. And they can get very much bullying around our heart and soul and pushing it off to the side. But we consciously, as beings, human beings, need to bring that heart and soul into our leadership and our careers. And I think it makes a big difference. And there's some vulnerability in doing that also, and knowing ourselves to be able to do that.
Yeah, I love it that we are not a human doing, we're a human being. That's so cool. Pat, you said that we have those limitations, this imposter syndrome, the sometimes lack of confidence. And very often, as leaders, we have our mentors, we have someone we look up to, and we want to be like someone else. So we like a leader and, oh, I want to be like her, or I want to be like him. So what would you recommend to business leaders, how to find their authentic style, how to be how to find their authentic selves as leaders, not trying to be someone else, pretending to be someone?
Yeah, thanks, Elena. My mind immediately explodes in a whole bunch of directions with this question. So let me try to rally my brain back and talk about a few things. First of all, I think that the greatest work we do is to find out who we are, what makes us joyful and happy. And I think that as leaders in the corporate world or in not-for-profit world, the greatest gift we can give ourselves is do work that we love, do work that we're passionate about, and then it feeds our authentic self. Groucho Marx said in a quotation, just be yourself, everyone else is taken. And I remind myself all the time that when I look, for example, when I was practicing working on my speaking skills, and I was stuck, and I just was like, I couldn't move it to the next level. And so I thought, well, what I'm going to do is go and find the types of communicators that I enjoy, that I appreciate, that I would like to be like. But I wanted to use them to look at some of the techniques that they used, the way they approached their audience, some of their skills, but not to become them. And that we each need to recognize that we're individuals and we have individual gifts, strengths, weaknesses, and to build on those strengths that we have and the uniqueness, because I may appeal to somebody in the way I communicate or the way I lead, and other people would go, oh my gosh. So we'll never please everyone. There's always going to be that 20% that immediately dislike us, that 20% that immediately love and adore us regardless of what we do. And then there's 60% in the middle that are always making up their mind and deciding based on what we did recently. So I think that as leaders in the corporate world, as well as in not-for-profit, that we really need to find ourselves. And for me, sometimes that started by simply identifying the things I didn't like, because that was where the easiest place, because I didn't really know what I liked because I hadn't experienced it all, but I could find the things I didn't like. And when I watch people in the workplace and in the corporate world, and I see CEOs walking around and they're stressed and they're hunched up and they get in the elevator with other people. When we did such a thing, it's a foreign world now, but when they got in the elevator, they would just be so self-absorbed. They saw nothing or felt nothing outside of themselves. And I thought, are you doing work that you're passionate about? Because I think it costs us our heart and soul when we do work for the paycheck without having any other reward from it. And this was I've done work in my life because I needed the work and I had a child to raise, and it was a means, but I always knew that I was going towards something else. And the last 20 25 years I worked in the corporate world and in government, I promised myself that I would never do work that I didn't love. I read it somewhere, it stuck, and I went and I said, do I love my work? Now, there's days that are more challenging than others, but I could basically say that I went to work and loved the work that I was doing. And as a result, I also attracted or hired people that loved what they were doing because nobody else could stand to be around us, right? Who wants to be around this happy group that loves this and is so passionate about it and doesn't quit talking about it and has got other plans for next year and what we could do bigger and better. And it could be quite obnoxious for people that are unhappy there. And so it self-perpetuated. We manifested this really super powerful, tight team because we loved what we were doing. And it was so easy to go to work and have that. And stress, there was stress from budget, guidelines and time guidelines and managing risk, all of those things. But there was still that why we were there was joyful, and the end result, we never lost track of that vision of where we were headed, and we could encourage one another. So I think that was part of me finding my authentic self. When I was international president, it puts you in circumstances where you have no preparation. So I used to be a person that I prepared to the nth degree. Like I would prepare for months if I was doing something. And I went, this is actually crippling because I didn't trust myself. And so that self-trust got in the way. And I, as international president, I walked into circumstances where I had to represent an international organization like within 5 seconds. And I was forced to trust myself, to know that my brain had knowledge, that I cared and that I would respond and that I had the skills to do it. So through successes in that pressure cooker to some degree, I built confidence and that showed up in my workplace as a result of that happening. One circumstance I remember is I was on a visit and I was overseas, and I believe I was in Southern Africa at the time, and I had been asked, I spoke at an event in the evening, and after that event was over, a business owner came up to me and said, would you come and speak to my executive committee and my managers tomorrow morning about bringing the Toastmasters program in-house for us? And I said, I would love to do that. So we got that on my calendar, and I went the next morning and went in fully prepared, and I presented the information. We had a question and answer period at the end and got them clear on the benefits and how they could start to make this happen. And as we shook hands and the meeting was ended, he said, would you take a few minutes? Could you take some time and talk to my staff about what you talked about last night? Now, I'd been on the road for 2 weeks, speaking like 4 or 5 times a day, going from meeting to meeting. And when he said what you talked about last night, I went, I haven't got a clue what I talked about last night. So I said, well, sure, I could speak to your employees. When would that be? And he said, well, they're here right now. And I went, where? And he opened the door and we went out and down a very short hallway and into another hallway. And I walked in to an lecture hall of people full. And he introduced me and I walked onto the stage and I was absolutely thoughtless. I couldn't think of what my name was, why I was there, what I would talk about, who these people were, because as a communicator, I went, I don't know who my audience is. What does he want me to talk about? And so I look at that and I think that was a watershed moment for me, because I came out of that time totally changed. I don't know to this day if I talked about what he wanted me to talk about. But at the end, he thanked me for speaking to his employees and you know, providing insight, whatever. I can't remember all the details. But I walked out of there going, I wouldn't have done that to my worst enemy. And yet it was such a gift. And I was again reminded of what my great aunt would say, you'll never be tried beyond what you can endure. And I went, okay, that's the limits though. No harder than that. I don't want anything like that again. But it was so powerful. But in that, I found more strength and courage in myself. So it was part of that peeling thin layers as we look for our authentic self. The other thing that I discovered was as I aged, I got more comfortable with who I am. And I'm a bit of a goofball. So I love to play. So and I love to sing, and I'll sing when I'm driving the car. I'm the crazy woman that pulls up beside you that's singing away. And I sing at home, and I dance in the kitchen, and I dance around my house. And that's just how I am. And I have friends who we go downtown in the city, and we skip down the street singing songs like little girls used to do in school. And not all my friends want to do that with me, by the way, but some of my friends do. And so I'll phone Tracy and Pam and go, let's go skipping. Or I'll say to Nigel, let's go to the park, and we go swinging on the swings. So I found that the goof in me, the child in me that likes to play, and giving myself permission. So that's a part of my authentic self. Because when I was a child, I was the super responsible person. I was a child that made sure everything was in place and looked after. And now I have the freedom as a crone in life to be playful and enjoy that and accept that. And so I even joke around some, you know, in my keynote speeches, when I'm a keynote speaker, I can joke around or make fun of myself and have fun, because life doesn't have to be so serious. So it's, I think in our authenticity also, it's recognizing that we're wonderful as individuals. And it's not about everybody else's approval, but it's about us approving of ourselves and finding the worthiness of that and the freedom in that. And I will say it's an ongoing process. I don't think it ends until we die and we're transmuted from this world, however that works. But I think that as long as we're on this earth, that there's things to discover about ourselves and continue those thin layers of peeling back to find the true, authentic, who am I? So, yeah. Complex question, right?
Yeah. Yes, but very, very interesting answers, and really, yeah, I can really say that you figured it out for yourself. But also, we need to try to be more authentic. I think, especially in the business world, because we can see that a lot of business leaders, they want to look professional, to be serious, to be perceived as senior, but we don't see so many authentic leaders. And it is, I think that in the nonprofit world, in the Toastmasters world, I see more of this authenticity, but in the business world, there is still room for improvement in this.
Yeah.
And Patty mentioned that you were introducing the Toastmasters program to the corporations, and that you wrote a book about this some time ago. I was actually on your presentation when you presented your book in Chicago. Oh. It was very, very nice, very interesting presentation. And our listeners are mostly business people, and maybe they could be interested in introducing this Toastmasters program into their companies to improve leadership skills. So what would you recommend them to do if they had to introduce this leadership program to their organization?
Yeah, great. Thanks, Elena. And I'll get to that in just a moment. I was just going to say that what came up for me when you talked about us being serious at work, that I think that, you know, when I went to work, I still put on my suit and I put on my corporate representation, but I also put on a smile and my sense of humor and my authentic personality there's room in the boardrooms for that, to be human and bring some heart and soul to our leadership rather than just the doingness, but bring the beingness to our leadership, as well as wearing the corporate suit and the briefcase, etc., or the laptop, whatever it might be. So just to share that. Thank you for the question around Toastmasters for the corporate world and corporate leaders. Certainly, Toastmasters International is currently in 145 countries around the world, and we just celebrated our 96th birthday. And at any one time, we have over 360,000 students in the program that are studying communication and leadership on an experiential basis. Toastmasters is very unique in that way, and this is how the program was set up, that we learn by doing. And so as a result, we have those successes. We experience that confidence, that self-esteem growth by doing. And we've made great strides over the past several years of taking the Toastmasters program into the corporate world, because there is a huge need for communication and leadership development experientially in the corporate world. Because I ran learning and development departments and I bought training to actually meet the training needs of our employees in the corporate world and government world, I recognized that the part of communication that the corporate world really needed was the listening and the thinking skills, not so much speaking. I mean, we could get better at it. We could get more concise. We could get clearer. We could get more confidence about it. But the listening and the thinking skills were huge in the workplace. That people were losing the ability to think deeply and analytically about items. That if I asked my staff members to go away and think deeply about something and come back with a whole bunch of ideas, I wanted them to be able to do that, to know how to do that. And you could learn that in Toastmasters. Listening skills, I don't mean just hearing the TV or hearing the YouTubes, but really comprehending and hearing the words and hearing the messages, hearing how things are put together, if things actually make sense, if people are avoiding the question or if they're answering the question. So listening deeply and to comprehend is so, so important. And so those are two communication skills that Toastmasters incorporates in absolutely everything we do. We simply walk into a training program for Toastmasters and it happens, because our role is as a listener and to provide feedback to what goes on. It is one of the greatest training programs for managers and supervisors. So your middle managers that need to provide feedback or run meetings that may not have done that, to work with giving feedback to their staff, running projects, providing feedback anywhere where there's human dynamics and working as a team, and providing feedback and communication, listening deeply, analyzing. Toastmasters sets them up. And when I was in the last employment I had in the corporate world, we actually created an online 210-hour program to build managers and supervisors in our corporation, because they were the hardest group of people to hire. Because you got subject matter experts who work at the operational level, and then they get promoted, but they have no people skills. They have no supervisory skills. They don't have the communication skills, but they're subject matter experts, and we want them at that level, but they're not skilled, but we have no place to send them. I suggested we send them to Toastmasters because they can get the skills. It's a welcoming environment for learners because there's no pass or fail. Here's a suggestion of how you can improve, which again boosts that confidence and self-esteem. And I can't tell you how many times that I've seen the supervisors or managers or even the senior officers of members of Toastmasters come to a meeting and walk in and say, I had to come and see what happened to Brady and why he's changed so much at work. And that then the senior managers or VPs are sold on the concept because they've actually seen it embodied in Brady or Pat or Elena when we show up at work. Just the way we're being with people, our skills, the way we present ideas. So I look at the transferable skills. The meeting management also comes in the Toastmasters program, which is very, very valuable for anybody that's running meetings. Looking at team building, because we're part of a team, even that huge team of the corporate employees is a team. Looking at celebration and acknowledgement and recognition, Toastmasters provides that for us in doing it. And the uniqueness of the Toastmasters program in the corporate world from most of the training that we do is that we give knowledge, but we provide that safe laboratory where people get to actually apply the knowledge and build a skill. And that's what I call our secret sauce in Toastmasters program, is that we can actually build the skill there, not just have the knowledge, go back and sit at our desk and do nothing towards building the skill, but we're required to build the skill and supported in doing that. It's, as I said, non-pass or fail. So you can go as long as you're growing and developing and it meets your needs. And we do renewals every 6 months so that people can then reassess. Do they need to keep going? Is there something of value for them here? So there's a long list of benefits that's available. And I know anybody certainly in the district of Toastmasters International that's over in your part of the world, it can answer it, or you could go to toastmasters.org to find out where you could contact people locally to find out more about the Toastmasters program. But given that you're currently listening to Elena's program, you could contact Elena directly and she could put you in touch with people that could support you in exploring the Toastmasters program potentially for your workplace. Ideally, we like to have people that are, organizations that are able to sustain a group. And we require in the Toastmasters agreement that we have a minimum of 20 people. That's the bare minimum of having 20 people in the group at any one time to keep it viable and functioning well as a learning environment. But all those details can be you could glean those from Elena or the people that she would put you in touch with. I see it as a gift in the workplace. Certainly when I was responsible and I reported to the CEO and I told her about the benefits of Toastmasters, and we created an internal policy of how to support and pay for our employees to have both time and money to go to the Toastmasters program every week. And so we do hold weekly learning sessions where people participate and are interactively involved in that learning process. And as I said, they can come and go as quickly as they want, or that they've learned the skills that they've been encouraged to learn. And there's many, many supports in place to support the corporation. So you're never on your own. The Toastmasters organization has structures that support you. We provide the curriculum. We provide a team of people that help you get that program established and up and going, and then ongoing support. And you're actually joining a global organization. And your participants in the Toastmasters program actually have access to that global organization to develop their leadership skills way into a global perspective if they wish to. And they can keep it as small as they wish also. It's dependent on them. We use a lot of mentoring as well, and that's something that also will go back into the workplace where people learn to mentor and be mentored and build that knowledge base. So a lot of transferable skills. I could go on for a long time, which I won't, but I just encourage you to reach out to local Toastmasters. Toastmasters.org. If you go to that website, you could actually, on the left-hand corner of the upper page, it says find a club, and you could actually write in Warsaw, Poland, and it would bring up all the clubs that meet in Warsaw, how they meet, how you would contact them. So you could even start there if you wanted to just be real hands-on up front and see how many there are in the surrounding areas. So I invite you to encourage the people around you and in your organization to have this fantastic experience. Either bring it into the corporate world where you can give it as a benefit. Many organizations use this as an HR benefit package. When they bring new hires in, they say, we provide communication and leadership training on site, and this is how you can sign up. Or even to encourage your employees to do it as an extracurricular activity if that's what works best for your situation. But yeah, it's I sent and encouraged many of my employees to go to Toastmasters and saw the change in them and how they confront their self-limiting beliefs when they're required to present, because there's a curriculum in Toastmasters that takes us step by step, that development. And so there is a strong curriculum that has over 300 competencies built into it. The program's built on adult education principles. And so it's strongly based, and it is an online availability. So what we basically have to deal with is online access in the corporate environment, and then we're ready to go. A meeting place and enough people, and we're in business. But as I said, Elena and her team and her field of resources can definitely answer any other questions you have about this and the benefits, as well as help you get it in place, or even invite you out so you can see it in action. If you're one of those people that wants to see it and feel it first, you can have a trial run. Just call Elena and she'll set you up to go to a meeting online right now, but later in person again, hopefully. And so you can experience it and see what it's like. So join us in Toastmasters for an experience.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Pat, for all those details. I'm sure it is very valuable for our listeners to know more about the program. So where can our listeners find you if they want to know more about your coaching or the Toastmasters program? Where it is better to contact you?
Yes, thank you. I think probably the best place to contact me would be in my email, and I'll give that to you. And for them to for sure put in the subject line, that so I know it's not spam, that it's a question about coaching or it's a question about Toastmasters. So something that would cause me to open up the many emails that come in every day, right, Elena?
Yes.
So my email address is PATTHETRAINER. So Pat the Trainer at Shaw, SHAW.ca. So Pat the Trainer at shaw.ca. And that's the best place to get me. I also have text and WhatsApp. So my phone is, well, my country code would be 1, and then I'm 250-893-4171.
Perfect. I will put those details under our episode so that our listeners can contact you if they have any additional questions. Thank you very much for the conversation, Pat, and for your amazing insights.
Thanks, Elena. It was a pleasure to be able to chat with you today.
Thank you for listening to Ideas and Leaders podcast. Did you enjoy this episode? Let me know that you listened by tagging me in your LinkedIn profile and using a hashtag ideas and leaders. See you in the next episode.